Welcome to First Bite. We are still here. It is NFC Championship week, and your Detroit Lions still in it in the Final Four. My name, by the way, is Jeremy Reisman. I'm the producer over at Pride of Detroit. You can find me at Detroit Online on Twitter. As always, to help us break down this upcoming Lions game is the senior editor of Pride of Detroit, is at Ryan_POD on Twitter, is Ryan Matthews. Ryan, how we doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. It's snow day number 2 in a row. I'm hoping for number 3 because there's too much Lions information to take in, and I feel like I'm going to miss something. I'm going to have FOMO tomorrow, Jeremy, if I'm at school instead of covering more Lions stuff.
I mean, the kids can wait. You can just have like the laptop projected on the screen, and you all can work together.
Perfect. I'll hit you up after this, and we can come up with a lesson plan.
Great.
Good idea.
Perfect. All right. If this is your first time listening to us on First Bite, whether you're a San Francisco fan or a Lions fan, because this is technically a crossover episode. We always have a guest from the other side, but this is kind of, we're working together here. And so there's going to be questions asked both sides, and it's going to be a good, fun episode here. And so we got a very special guest who knows his stuff, who's known all over 49ers fandom for certain. You might know him as at Stats on Fire on Twitter. He is the host of the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Rob Guerrera is here. Rob, thanks for joining us, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to do it.
Oh, man. I can't tell you how excited I am, not only to talk to you, but to still be talking Lions football here in late January. Still kind of a surreal experience for us. But I want to start things off like we normally do, starting with the opposing offense, the 49ers offense going against the Lions defense. And if we're going to talk 49ers offense, we got to talk Brock Purdy because, I mean, a lightning rod of a conversation starter anytime you bring his name up. And I want to start, I guess, just with the fact that this man was an MVP candidate for like 90% of the season, and then has one bad game against the Ravens and suddenly off the radar. Why is everyone so eager to dismiss Brock Purdy?
Because he's not as physically talented as the quarterbacks that are left in the playoffs. He's not as good of a thrower as Jared Goff. He certainly doesn't have the arm talent of Lamar and Patrick Mahomes. He can move a little bit, but he's just not, he doesn't have those easy to see things from the neck down that we like to see from quarterbacks that are playing at this stage of the season.
So Rob, based on that, like if those are his quote unquote, the holes that people poke through his game, is that he doesn't look like Mahomes or he doesn't look like Allen and doesn't do the things that those guys do. What's Brock Purdy's superpower? Because we asked this question to ourselves about Jared Goff this offseason. But I'm interested to hear like what Brock Purdy's superpower is at quarterback to you.
If you're asking me like his most elite skill, and I know it's a very loaded word, he is elite at avoiding pass rushers and being elusive. He doesn't always have to use it, but there was a play in week 1 of this year where Minkah Fitzpatrick of the Steelers comes rushing through completely unblocked, and it's Purdy and it's Minkah one-on-one. And Minkah gets nothing but air because Purdy, you don't know it to look at him, but he's very hard to take down, which I think is going to be something that's very handy in this game because Aiden Hutchinson is going to be in his lap all afternoon.
Well, yeah, let me jump straight to that question then, because, yeah, I think I'm looking at this matchup and I'm trying to find ways in which the Lions can slow down the 49ers, and that might be what the key right there is. Aiden Hutchinson normally coming off of the offense's right side, and I look at Colton McKivitz and I see some stats that seem a little bit concerning on the 49ers end in terms of pressures allowed, in terms of sacks allowed. Do you view it that same way as maybe a major concern that could blow up this matchup?
Yeah, he stinks. 68 in red is awful. And the frustrating thing about it is we knew he was awful going into the season. Like, this is not a shock. I don't want to bang on him too much because he's doing the best that he can possibly do. The problem is his best is just not very good. And he's always going to face the other team's best pass rusher because what are your options? Should we go against Trent Williams or should we go against 68 Colton McKivitz? Let me think. And so he's really put in a box. So on the one hand, I say, well, look, it's been an issue all year and the 49ers have kind of dealt with it. But on the other hand, when you're talking a one-game scenario, right, where it may come down to one single play, and a lot of times that single play is a pass, and a lot of times everybody knows you're going to pass. And in that situation, Aiden Hutchinson is beating Colton McKivitz every single time. So that does give me the cold sweats.
Well, something that might be reassuring. How do you feel about Trent Williams on the other side? The Lions haven't had much of a pass rush opposite of Aiden Hutchinson all season long. I don't know, James Houston, Jeremy, I don't know. Like, that question still lingers, but just talk a little bit about what Trent Williams has been able to do to transform this offense.
He's arguably the most valuable offensive lineman in the league. You never have to worry about him. Ever. Like, I don't even think about him because that's how good he is. He just erases people from the game, but also in the running game. Like, when they need a big run, it's going left. It's going behind 71. Sometimes they'll have Juwan Jennings 15, they'll have Kittle, and they'll have Trent Williams all on the left side. Good luck trying to stop the 49ers from running there because they just maul people. I don't know if you saw the clip of Juwan Jennings blocking that Packers guy into the Gatorade last week. That is literally what he does all the time. So when the Niners need a big run, they just load up on that side, and it's almost impossible to stop them because, oh, by the way, even if you get penetration, you still have to tackle Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. And that's interesting that we bring this up too because Dan Campbell was asked, I don't know if it was today or Monday. Days are starting to run into each other, but just look at this San Francisco offense. They're number one in the pass. They're number two in the run game. Number three in points scored. All that sort of stuff. Like, where do you even start with this defense? How do you attack this 49ers offense? What do you aim? Do you go for Deebo? Do you go for McCaffrey? Do you go for who? What do you try to stop first? And Dan Campbell gave the most Dan Campbell answer, and it didn't surprise anybody. He says we got to stop the run. That first and foremost, we got to stop the run. Otherwise, they're going to run for 250 on us. Obviously, that's a lot easier said than done. But if you're a defensive coordinator, is that your kind of game plan too? It's like, we got to make sure we stop the run because everything else kind of sprouts off from that.
Yes, it's not like it was in years past where it's we got to stop the run because Jimmy Garoppolo can't beat us. It's we got to stop the run because the play action comes off of that. And if the 49ers can run the ball well enough, the score is never going to get out of hand to where the Niners just have to go to their straight drop back passing game, which is the weakest part of their offense. But I will say I am confident that, let's say the Lions stop the run, but the score is, within a score or it's tied, something like that. It's not a situation where I'm nervous that Brock Purdy can't chuck the ball down the field because I believe that he can. I believe he has shown that he can. Whereas with Jimmy Garoppolo, when he would drop back to pass, all I would hope for was that something bad was not about to happen. With Brock Purdy, when he drops back, I think something good is about to happen. So that is a little bit of a difference between the 49ers that we have seen in the playoffs in recent history and this 49ers team.
Rob, I think the interesting dynamic that exists there, right? Jeremy talks about all the playmakers, and obviously, Deebo's the only 49ers player on the injury report, and his status still seems pretty much up in the air. But when the 49ers get Christian McCaffrey, and with how much Kyle Shanahan uses pre-snap motion and moves guys around and is just a master at creating matchup, advantages for those guys. When it comes to McCaffrey and Deebo, like, is it going to be so important that Deebo's out on the field? And if he isn't out on the field, does it make it a little bit easier for the defense?
Oh, completely. Because what makes McCaffrey so good, right, is the gravity that he has because he's so versatile that no matter where he is on the field, he affects the defense. If he's in the slot, that changes things for the defense. If he's in the backfield, what if he starts in the backfield and goes to the slot? All of those things change the defense and put the defense in a bind. Now imagine you have two of those people with Deebo and Christian McCaffrey, right? And before the play, McCaffrey starts in the backfield. But then he shifts and goes out. But then after he shifts, Deebo goes in motion. What they're doing with all that stuff is they're changing the responsibilities of the defenders. And then all of a sudden it's snap. So it's like, okay, you go into a play thinking, there's McCaffrey, this is my job. Then McCaffrey shifts and you're like, okay, now my job is different because McCaffrey shifted. Oh, wait, here comes Deebo. Now my job is something. Wait, what is my job? Oh, wait, the play has started. And so they really put you in a blender, and just that you guys know that half step or a misstep and you're cooked. And so that's why having Deebo and McCaffrey at the same time, that's why this offense goes from 7.2 yards a play with Deebo to 5.2 without him.
Well, and Rob, I didn't want to use the Packers game as like, oh, I understand like how the 49ers offense looks completely different without Deebo, but like, do you get the sense that they do different things with McCaffrey when they don't have the luxury of having Deebo out there?
Yes, I would say so, but also like the frustration with 49ers fans is it seems like Kyle draws up the game plan, and then if Deebo goes out during the game, it's like Kyle had no backup plan. It's almost like he had no idea that a football player could get injured during a football game. And so we're all sitting there like, dude, you've got McCaffrey, you've got Ayuk, you've got Kittle. Like, how is the offense struggling this much just because Deebo is not there? But I think because of the uncertain status of Deebo this week, I think Kyle's basically going to have the 2 game plans. Because even if Samuel can start the game, there's no guarantee that he's going to be able to finish the game. One hit, especially with the way Deebo plays, we know, that shoulder could act up again and he could be gone. So I think that Kyle will be better prepared this week than he was last week. But yes, there is a difference in how they use McCaffrey, or let's just say the effectiveness or the gravity of McCaffrey when Deebo's also not there.
It's interesting with all this, pre-snap motion and changing of responsibilities on the fly for the defense. It makes me almost think that this is slightly a better situation for the Lions to have it be on the road, where the defense can use that opportunity to communicate as much as possible. The Ford Field isn't going to be screaming their heads off, and obviously it still has to happen very quick, and with the way that the 49ers move with tempo and stuff, it's not going to be easy, but I wonder if just being able to communicate on defense helps a little bit. But while we're on that topic, and I know this is kind of off the sheet and maybe plays more into the opposite matchup, but I guess how do you expect the environment to be like at Levi's Stadium for this game? Because I'm already starting to hear like estimates of maybe like 20% Lions fans in Santa Clara, which would be pretty impressive travel for a conference championship game.
That would be a disappointment, honestly. It was 97% Niners fans last week, which is and the Packers fans travel, so right. that was nice to see by the faithful. I hadn't seen an update this week. If it is really 20%, that's a credit to everybody in Detroit. But I think the environment is going to be nuts, especially if the 49ers can get a lead early. Mm-hmm. They have more points on the opening drive this year than anybody else in NFL history. They have been excellent at going down the field. I mean, Shanahan's got the scripted plays, right? They dial it up. They move the ball. If they get a lead early, that place is going to go nuts because the whole 49er team is built to get a lead, to play with a lead. Mm-hmm. Particularly, obviously, if you can get up multiple scores, that's perfect because that's really when the defense seems to shine. But I think the environment is going to be absolutely nuts. We have been waiting for this, Jeremy, since last year, since the NFC. I mean, Brock Purdy got hurt less than 10 offensive snaps into the NFC Championship game last year. So everybody, the players have been talking about it all day today. We're ready. We're waiting for this. We've got back. Finally, the whole season was about getting back to that point because they felt like they were robbed. And now they're here. And I think it's going to be absolutely crazy at Levi's.
You guys have had to wait an entire year?
Yes, I know. I understand. I'm not going to try and get into a misery competition with Lions fans when I have 5 Lombardi trophies in the trophy case. You win.
Well, Rob, to that point, just a quirky, fun little stat that I pulled up looking at DVOA numbers historically, and those numbers go all the way back to 1981. This is the top-ranked team offense for a 49ers team in their history since 1981. Like, how surprising is that to hear, considering all the Super Bowls and the Montana and Young and everything that came in between it?
It's surprising when you say those names, but when you look at the personnel that the 49ers have, they're the first team ever to have an all-pro wide receiver, an all-pro tight end, and an all-pro running back at the same time. Like, they are, and that doesn't count Brandon Ayuk, who's fantastic. This offense is clearly the best offense of the Shanahan era because they have Christian McCaffrey now. He's fully integrated, whereas last year he was kind of trying to change the tires on a moving car. This year he's fully up to speed with the offense. Ayuk's had the best year he's ever had. He was second in the league in yards per reception. And Brock Purdy is not, or I should say, has not in the past been afraid to let it rip down the field as soon as he sees it. Last week, he was, and he admitted he was, which is something that we haven't seen from Brock, so that's a little concerning. But the reason why they've been so good this year is because Brock is like, yep, the deep shots are there, and generally, he's a guy that takes doubles over singles. He will pass up the check down for a deeper play down the field.
Well, that kind of got into my next question because, if looking at this from a Lions standpoint, they've been giving up explosive plays through the air for the past month and a half, really all season, but especially in the last really 2 months. And so I'm kind of curious where are the areas that this passing offense likes to attack, because the line is very, very weak on the perimeters, got a good nickel, got decent safeties. Is that where the 49ers are they capable of hitting everywhere on the field? Do they like hitting the middle of the field? Do they take a ton of deep shots? Where's Purdy and company, I guess, most dangerous?
Most of the time, they like to attack the intermediate middle part of the field. That's generally where they like to live. But the refreshing thing about Purdy this year is that when stuff is open on the outside and deeper down the field, he lets it rip. He's not afraid to do it. He can make those back shoulder throws 20, 25 yards down the field. He will do that. Now if Detroit decides to load up the middle of the field and force him to do that every time, that'd be an interesting thing to have to see. But if it's there, generally, Brock will take it. Like I said, he usually lets it rip, and he can put it on receivers accurately.
Jeremy, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at numbers because we're talking about Brandon Ayuk and we're talking about deep field threats of any receiver with at least 70 targets. He's 6th in average depth of target among NFL wide receivers at 14.3.
That's crazy. Yeah, can you talk more about Ayuk, because everyone talks about McCaffrey, everyone talks about Deebo, everyone talks about Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk's over there is the number 2 PFF wide receiver in football, which, I mean, you can say what you will about PFF, but that's not a fluke. This guy is a very, very talented guy.
No, he absolutely is. There has been nobody more held back by the shortcomings at quarterback than Brandon Ayuk. I think he could have put up similar numbers if he had a quarterback, again, that's willing to let it rip. Ayuk is a fantastic route runner. He can get open against anybody. He's got a wingspan that's longer than Calvin Johnson. His body is abnormally shaped. He is not a normally shaped human being. It's ridiculous. He most of the time has really good hands. And, I know people like to think that the Niners offense is like a check down offense, but more than 70% of Ayuk's yards have come in the air. He's catching the ball deeper down the field. Kyle's dialing up some things, those deep over routes where he just gets wide open, where there's nobody within 5-10 yards of him. And Purdy has not missed those when they've been there.
All right, last question before we go, and I'm gonna take Aiden Hutchinson off the table here. If you're the 49ers offensive coordinator in this game, what scares you most about the matchup against the Lions outside of Aiden Hutchinson?
I don't mean to be disrespectful, but
it's okay.
Turnovers by Brock is what I would say.
Okay.
Because like you said, the Niners offense is really good. The only thing that has stopped them, even with Colton McKivitz and his turnstile pass blocking, has been turnovers. They've been able to compensate for everything else. They've been able to run the ball. They've been able to use the play action. Kyle's done a good job of not most of the time not having those offensive linemen just have to block for 3, 4, 5 seconds. So if the Niners don't turn it over, they will move the ball.
Yep. I mean, the stats check that one out. They're the number 1 offense by several different measures for a good reason. And going to be an interesting matchup here with the Lions. But we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to flip the script, talk about the Lions' pretty impressive offense, and see how the 49ers match up with that when we come back here on the Conference Championship edition of First Bite. We'll be right back. All right, just for our live audience, we're going to jump right back into it, our second segment here, just so that we respect Rob's time here. Yeah, we'll get right back into it. And we are back here on First Bite, Conference Championship Edition, Lions versus 49ers this Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. We're here with Rob Guerrera, the host of the Gold Standard Podcast Network, a.k.a. Stats on Fire. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the Lions offense going up against this 49ers defense. And I'll be honest, Rob, most Lions fans were watching, obviously, last week's game against the Packers. It was a weird spot in which Lions fans were rooting for the Packers for a second week in a row, and it felt dirty and gross. But I would say most Lions fans were pretty pleased with what they saw for most of that game because the 49ers looked like a team that was vulnerable defensively. So from your point of view, what went wrong for San Francisco in that game on the defensive side of the ball? And is that something to be concerned about going forward, or was it just, coming off a bye, maybe there's a little bit of rust?
I think there was some rust. I think that's fair. I mean, a lot of the starters hadn't played in a game that mattered since New Year's Eve. But I don't want to just say, well, it was all rust, because that's a mistake too. The 49ers run defense is not great, particularly on plays to the edge, to the outside. You can get the edge on the 49ers. The Packers did it multiple times in the game. I'm sure the Lions are going to do it. That's the part of the offense that scares me the most, because Dan Campbell is not going to stop running. Like, the Packers at times kind of got away from Aaron Jones a little bit, and I was certainly thankful for it. Dan Campbell's not going to do that. He will just keep giving the ball to the running backs, I think. Well, you tell me if I'm wrong. But if he does, I think the Lions are going to be able to move the ball. I think they're going to be able to consistently put themselves in 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2, those type of situations.
Well, Rob, can we talk about that a little bit more? Because it makes me feel good, and it makes me feel better about the Lions' chances this weekend. So, when it comes to the 49ers run defense, and I think, Jeremy, they're 15th, I think, in team
DVOA,
rush defense, DVOA, yeah. So, I mean, a defense for all intents and purposes really good, but I noticed maybe some lack up front on the 49ers defensive line in terms of their ability to stop the run, and a guy that I think a lot of Lions fans maybe want to check in on in Chase Young, somebody who was available at the deadline and the 49ers picked up themselves. Has his run defense been a bit of a kind of a letdown?
Yes. In fact, he's been kind of a letdown. He had a sack early where he and Bosa literally met at the quarterback, which was insane. It was yes, this is what it's going to be like every play. And yeah, no, it's not. I would say there's a reason that Washington was willing to let him go for basically a compensatory pick. I mean, he can flash at times. Absolutely, he can. But in terms of a consistent contributor, he's just not that. It's not what I thought we were going to be getting. Now, again, on any one play, he could make an impact, but in the running game, he hasn't really, been a standout. Bosa's been trying to talk him up this week and telling him he's got to elevate his game to the next level. But also, dude, if I got to talk you up before the conference title game, what are we doing here?
Fair. Elsewhere along the defensive line, you have these incredible pass rushers in Kinlaw, Armstead, Hargrave. But if you look at PFF score, and this is why I'm asking you because I don't completely trust PFF score, those guys tend to be liabilities in the run game. Is that fair, would you say? Is that maybe a reflection of how aggressive they are at getting upfield, and sometimes you can slide right by that? Do you agree with that PFF assessment? I'm just kind of curious because the Lions would love to be able to get work up the middle in the run game if you view that as maybe a vulnerability, particularly in the run game.
Yeah, you'll be able to run up the middle. You're getting me on a day where I'm not particularly high on the 49ers defensive line. I really think, in a lot of cases, they're more name than game. I mean, the Javon Hargrave I saw that was a pass rushing terror with the Eagles. I don't know where that guy went, but I know he's not in San Francisco. It's just not there. There's too many games where we're sitting there saying, where's the pass rush? And people love to come back with here's the PFF pressures. And Nick Bosa had 5 quarterback hits last week. And it's yeah, that's great. And I get that is not nothing. But also, it's not sacks. And you, especially Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave, you are paid for sacks to take the quarterback down. Football at its most basic level is a fight for territory. And sacks are a win. You gain territory as a defense when you sack the quarterback. And there's just been too many games where they don't have any. And you're gonna need them. And Nick Bosa's being paid this year to get those. And he just hasn't. And it's been too often. I don't think he has a sack in his last 4 playoff games. That just can't happen.
Well, that's a marquee matchup right there, though, Rob. You got Bosa versus Sewell. I mean, maybe kind of talk about how Bosa's maybe, either rose to the occasion or not so much showing up in big games against big-time tackles.
His first couple of years in the league, he seemed to always rise to the occasion. It was unbelievable. People have said, well, what did Nick Bosa do in the Super Bowl? He was incredible in the Super Bowl. He was incredible in his first few playoff games. And now these past couple of years, it seems like, I don't know if he's dinged up at the end of the year or just he's getting way more attention than he used to get. That's a thing too. But now I feel like he's good for like a couple of plays, but there are stretches in the game where I feel like you don't feel his presence. And that can be a little scary because this defense is built for their front four to get pressure so that they can keep 7 in coverage because their coverage is the weaker part of the defense. When they aren't getting pressure with 4, then they've got to do other things, and that kind of takes them out of their preferred, packages.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to watch Bosa versus Sewell. I think it's going to be incredible. And oddly enough, Panay's very first game came against Nick Bosa, and we were talking to him in the locker room about it a little bit today, and I asked him, like, what do you remember from that game? And he just said, I sweat a lot. I'm just like, yeah.
That's sweaty matchup.
Yeah, very sweaty matchup. But as much as I want to talk about how awesome Penei Sewell is, there is one part of this matchup on the offensive line versus the defensive line that scares the crap out of me, and that's Coyote Aushika stepping in for Jonah Jackson at left guard. He has struggled in terms of pass protection all year when he's had to step in. Given that the interior of that defensive line, if they do something well, it is that pass rush. How much do you expect, the 49ers to target in? Are they the type of team that is good, I guess, at finding the mismatch and exploiting it all game?
I think that they can be. I think Eric Armstead, that's 91 for the 49ers. That's definitely a name and number to watch.
Mm-hmm.
They started moving him to the inside a couple years ago, and he's really taken to it well. They kind of keep him on the outside a lot of the time for running on runs, and then they move him inside on passing downs kind of, so that they can move him around, but he's really been able to get some pressure, especially now that he's healthy. He's got this plantar fasciitis in his foot, which kind of flares up from time to time, but he seems to be doing well. He's working his way back now. That could definitely be an area where the 49ers have an advantage. And let me ask you, because the two things I see with Jared Goff, I see numbers when under pressure. There seems to be a big difference in Goff when he's under pressure, and also when he's outside, when he's not in a dome. And amazingly, I feel like every game you've played has been in a freaking dome.
Yeah.
But is that a real thing with Goff, being under pressure and being outside?
Well, Ryan, you wrote something specifically on the outdoor Jared Goff thing, so I'll let you take that one.
From all the numbers, Rob, it seems like if it's cold weather and if Jared Goff is wearing a glove or something like that, like that's not the ideal situation that you want him playing in. That's for sure. But by the same account, guys, I mean, week 18 last season goes into Lambeau and, takes care of business and outs, the Aaron Rodgers era in Green Bay. But, Rob, it seems like we're going to get decent weather, though. So I think that if we're going to have weather that isn't wet like it was last week in San Francisco, and if it's going to be rather sunny, I think the Cali boy is going to be just fine.
Right. It's a homecoming for him of sorts. And you'd think, he's played in that stadium, or at least whatever stadium the 49ers has been in plenty of times, right? And
he's played him. I mean, he's 9 career matchups against the 49ers. Obviously, some of those are on the road because they were in the division.
Right.
Bosa said today, I was stunned that he said it. He said, if you take away Goff's first and second read and get hits on him, he's not the same quarterback. And I was just like, damn, man, like that might be true, but I'm kind of surprised you said it out loud.
It's definitely true, but it's something he's also gotten way better at since he's landed in Detroit. Is his read progression, is his kind of knowing where the drop off route is and things like that. Because that's specifically what they've worked on when he got here. They're like, you need to be better pre-snap, knowing where the protection needs to be, where sliding protections, and in terms of just like knowing everything, because I mean it's been long reported, right, that Sean McVay was in that guy's ear until the radio went off, and now the Lions have given them a little bit more freedom to be able to figure out all that stuff on his own. He doesn't need someone holding his hand until the radio goes off anymore. So he's gotten better at that, but like any quarterback, he's not a great guy. He's much worse under pressure. He doesn't have a lot of escapability. He does, I think, maneuver in the pocket better than some people give him credit for, but it's subtle stuff. He's not going to run away from a guy that's coming right up the middle, but he'll slide a little bit. He'll give himself a little bit extra room. He can feel. He kind of has a better sixth sense to him. But he's not like Brock Purdy where, he can make a guy completely whiff. That's just not ever going to be his game. He's not athletic enough to do that.
Yeah, Purdy can go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, but to your point of what was said earlier about Goff is just, it's funny when you go back to the very first game of Lions Goff, and that's against the 49ers. Like that game was a game until Jared Goff just fumbled and threw the ball away. And that happened for a period this season too, in the month of November, where like the turnovers, when they happened, they came in bunches, and they came in bunches because it was pressure after pressure. And, after the pressure came the misreads and throwing to linebackers, and they do seem to pile up, but they seem like they've been further in between. Right. Yeah.
He creates these streaks. He ended last year, I think 9 straight games didn't throw an interception. And now he's kind of on that streak again of like playing very safe with the football type of games. But yeah, there was a streak of like 6 games where it seemed like all the fumbles were back, the interceptions were back. So, he's currently on a good streak, but yeah, there are also times
around the corner, maybe.
Right. And he gives you a very stark reminder every now and then. Like, last week he threw a ball right to the defender in the red zone. The week before, he threw a backwards pass while under pressure that was that was a disaster. It almost could have been a huge turning point in that Rams game. So they linger in the shadows every now and then for sure. But he's been kind of on a nice streak here of lower amounts of turnover worthy plays, but they're not gone.
Well, that is one thing the 49ers defense is excellent at. They led the league in interceptions with 22 this year, I believe. If they didn't, they might have been tied with somebody, but nobody had more interceptions than the 49ers this year. It's kind of their saving grace in a lot of ways with turnovers, because there have been a lot of times where teams have been moving the ball, but ultimately the 49ers find a way to take it away. So I wouldn't be stunned if the 49ers got at least one interception in this game. In fact, I think they will. But it's just going to be a question of how many times does Goff turn it over, and does Brock Purdy do the same? Because just like you were saying, Brock Purdy hit Darnell Savage between the 3 and the 6 last week. Like, you couldn't have put it on him any better. And Savage dropped it, and that happens for every quarterback. And sometimes the games hinge on how good the defenders can catch. And, we'll find out on Sunday.
Yeah. And we would be remiss if we did not mention this guy's name, because he's one of the most fascinating players in the league to me. And that's Fred Warner. Just tell me about, Rob, what makes him the secret sauce to the 49ers defense, because he just seems like the prototype, the unicorn. Maybe they may have broke the mold when they made him.
He's a freak. He was covering and carrying CeeDee Lamb in the slot last year in the playoffs. He's a middle linebacker.
Dude? What the hell?
It's absurd. There are so many plays. I always say you can't measure Fred Warner's performance on the stat sheet, on what he does on the field. You have to measure him by what doesn't happen, because there are so many plays where he just floats around and he'll go to his left and take away that read for a quarterback. And then he'll step up and take away the second read. And then he'll float backwards and take away another read. Like, he is just so good at how much ground he can cover, along with, by the way, 57 Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah.
Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner has said, whatever you think of me, think that of Dre Greenlaw. And he is right, because Greenlaw is a maniac on the field.
Yeah, I talked to Jared Goff about that again today, and he's just like, yeah, man, the speed is unreal. And the guys that big should not be moving that fast. And it's good. I feel like it's going to be, a really important part of this matchup, because the Lions obviously like to do so much work over the middle of the field as well. So, yeah, I want to kind of get into that, because we talk about all the weapons that the 49ers have. The Lions obviously have a ton of weapons too. And Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta and Jamison Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs in the passing game as well. So I guess of those 4, or maybe someone else, is there someone in particular that you're concerned about the 49ers maybe inability to cover in the passing game in particular?
I don't have an individual name, but what I can say is this. It's sort of a weird thing about this defense, and it's kind of been this way even under different coordinators, is you can have somebody, whoever you want, pick whoever you decide to target. They may go off and have a great game, and it may not matter at all. The 49ers have this weird habit. Cooper Kupp, if you look, Cooper Kupp has killed the 49ers. They've beaten the Rams 9 straight times in the regular season. Trey McBride, the Cardinals tight end, when he was the only option they had a massive game for the Cardinals. but like nobody else really does anything, I guess is the way that they have done it. So there have been options for other teams that have had great games against the 49ers, but it hasn't really mattered as much as you would think if you just looked at the box score. So if they want to target Laporta, like you would think that Fred Warner would be able to take him away, but no, I don't know if they've got him doing other stuff, but somebody's going to put up big numbers in the passing game for the Lions. Whoever they want it to be will do it. And especially if they put this person in the slot fade will be there for the Lions whenever they want it. The 49ers haven't been able to defend it for 4 years. So it's going to happen. Just mark it down on the bingo card.
It's interesting. You're saying all of this and my light is going off. Our entire live chat is going off. You sound like you're describing the Lions defense because they've just been giving up. Like one guy has gotten 180 yards every single game in the past 5 games, yet the Lions have won every single one of those games except for the Cowboys game, but they kind of won that game too.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Please.
Okay. I want to ask about Dan Campbell, because if there's one area where I think he can absolutely run circles around Kyle Shanahan, it is game management.
Sure.
Kyle Shanahan stinks at game management. He doesn't understand clock management. He doesn't understand when he should go for it on 4th down. He is terrible at it. And it's been 7 years now I've been screaming about it. Kyle said today, because they asked him flat out, like, hey, Dan Campbell, he's gonna go for it. He's gonna be aggressive. And Kyle's response was, well, those are opportunities for the offense, but they're opportunities for the defense too. Even in his answer, he was scared. Like, how aggressive do you think Dan Campbell is going to be? Do you expect them, if it's 4th and 1, is Dan Campbell going for it all the time? Like, give me a little info on that.
Rob, I do want to say that I'm nervous that Jeremy might not come back from Santa Clara because he might get a job as Kyle Shanahan's clock management guy if he can maybe put a bug in his ear, because that's Jeremy's dream job.
A little bit.
Yeah, but I'll let Jeremy kind of handle the Dan Campbell aggressiveness stuff.
Yeah, I mean, short answer is yes. What I really like about Dan Campbell is that he knows going into a game when he's going to have to crank it up even beyond 11, because we know he starts at 11, right? Every single day he's at an 11 out of 10. He knows that if this is going to be a boat race, like, I'm going to start, early in the game. I don't care. I'm not going to wait till the 4th quarter to start having to go for it. I'm not going to start waiting until I'm down 2 scores. If I know this is going to be a shootout and it's the very first drive of the game and we're at midfield and it's 4th and 1, we're going for it. The
Chargers game this year.
Yeah, exactly. The Chargers game is a perfect example. I will say the one part that's semi-annoying about them going for it on 4th and 1 every time is that it makes them a little bit more conservative on 3rd down. They're a team that if it's 3rd and 4, very high likelihood that they're going to run the ball, knowing that they're going to go for it on 4th down. And that annoys me a little bit because I'm like, why don't you just get it on 3rd down by passing the ball? We'll see that. You'll see that in the red zone too. Like, it was 3rd and goal from the 3-yard line last week, and I knew they were going to run the ball. I knew it, because I know if they pick up 1 or 2 yards, they're going to go for it on 4th down. And I think the defense knew it in that opportunity. He ended up losing 2 yards. 4th and goal from the 5, they actually kicked the field goal. It was kind of a rare opportunity there. The one interesting thing I think about this game, and I'm curious about this game, is do they crank up the aggressiveness when it comes to trick plays? Because the Lions are certainly not afraid to run up with trick plays. And they haven't really done a ton of it this postseason, Ryan. Like, the closest thing they had, I think, is that Brock Wright play, which is not really a trick play. That's just a very sneaky play.
It's a very sneaky play.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a, trying to think back, was it probably was it the Cowboys game and the germ to Khalil Dorsey pitch and catch on the fake punt?
Yeah. So, I mean, fake punts on the table, flea flickers on the table, as much as I don't like flea flickers. Like, I think all of that is on the table because I think, I mean, you're going into Santa Clara as a touchdown underdog. So, aggressiveness is going to be up to at least 11 in this game for sure.
Kitchen sink game. Absolutely. I would.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I heard this from Chris Sims today, and I thought it was a really interesting point that he made. Basically, what he said was, like, the Lions go all in on stuff on defense. For example, let's say it's 3rd and 1. The Lions are going to load up on the box, and they're going to say, you are not getting this 1 yard. You might get 65 yards, but we're not giving you this 1. Is that accurate?
I think it is. I'm curious what you think, because I mean I'm thinking of a very specific example. I'm trying to remember what team it was, but yeah, it was a 3rd and 1 situation, and the Lions like, yeah, you're not going to run for it, and then they get their top receiver on a 1-on-1 and he beats them for a 40-yard touchdown. Like, yeah, that happens for sure. And I think at times Aaron Glenn gets a little bit overly aggressive, especially right now, because they don't produce a lot of 4-man rush pressure outside of Aiden Hutchinson. There's no one else who does, so they've been blitzing a lot. And if you get into a 3rd and long, they're probably going to blitz. And again, the Bucs were able to kind of see that coming last week on a red zone play. They threw a screen pass right into the blitz, and it worked for a touchdown. That you can get the Lions on that for sure. But I'm curious, do you feel the same way, Ryan?
I do, and I was going to bring up that exact play. I think that feels like my biggest concern for the Lions this week when it comes to stopping Christian McCaffrey. I have a lot of confidence in their run defense, and even though it looked a little bit shaky last week against the Bucs rushing attack that was virtually non-existent for their entire season, and then even going back, the previous week to the Rams game, they could do some things with Kyron Williams, and the run defense has been great for a year and a half, and we've been able to say that. I have a lot more confidence in the Lions' ability to stop Christian McCaffrey as a runner than I do as a guy who can run the entire freaking route tree right. and then some. So that's my concern with stopping McCaffrey.
He is so good, and I keep screaming, like, he's never had a bad game with the team. And he, like you were talking about Bosa, does Bosa step up in the big games? McCaffrey absolutely steps up in the big games. In the NFC Championship game last year, when Brock Purdy was out and the sky was falling, Christian McCaffrey breaks 3 tackles, runs for 25 yards, scores a touchdown, and all of a sudden it's a tie game. And you're like, oh my God, how did that happen? Last week, the Niners are struggling on offense all game. They hand the ball to Christian McCaffrey. He breaks 3 tackles. He runs for a 39-yard touchdown. Like, he is so good, and he's good in the big moments. He is absolutely incredible to watch. I was so wrong about that trade when it went down, because I was like, he can't possibly be that good, because they gave up a 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th, and a 5th the next year to get him. And he has been worth all of it. Thank God for that man.
It's been a tough couple of years for running backs have no value for Jeremy. It's been tough. Between Christian McCaffrey and Jahmyr Gibbs, it's been tough.
Oh, you were down in the Gibbs pick?
No comment.
Aha. Hey, all right. I always tell people, you get 100% honesty with me. You don't get 100% accuracy.
That's exactly. There you go. I like that. All right, we're going to go to the final segment of our podcast, our preview podcast, which we call the One Thing We Think We Know. It's where we make a prediction about the game. Doesn't necessarily have to be the winner of the game, doesn't have to be the score, just one aspect of the game that you're pretty sure is going to happen. Rob, because I didn't tell you about this ahead of time, we're going to make Ryan do it first. We always make Ryan do it first. But he'll show you the ropes, how it's done. So, Ryan, what is the one thing you think you know about NFC Championship weekend, Lions versus 49ers?
First off, I was way off in the divisional round. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers did not false start even once, but it was technically the loudest it's ever been at Ford Field, so I get a half point.
All right.
This week, I'm going to say that Jared Goff plays a clean game, and he doesn't turn the ball over once.
Wow. In direct contrast of our guest.
I have this feeling about Jared Goff going back to California. I have this feeling about him just playing a game that would literally, I don't want to admit this on a Lions podcast, but there's still a creeping doubt in me that says, should the Lions give Jared Goff $55 million a year? Like, should they do that? Like, should they pony up?
50. Let's keep it at 50 here.
If he wins a conference championship game, Jeremy, it might be 55.
All right, fair.
But my point being is that this feels like the game that could finally slay that dragon for me. And if Jared Goff goes and plays a clean, even if they don't end up coming out victorious, if he has akin to what CJ Stroud did against Georgia in the college football playoff game, right? Like a game where it's like, oh, okay, no. I think that dude has it, right? Mm-hmm. This feels like the biggest stage that Jared Goff has had and the field goal posts keep on moving, but this is like the biggest stage that Jared Goff has had in his Lions career, maybe in his professional football career.
It's probably fair. I mean, he's been to a Super Bowl, but he can join, I think, 2 or 3 other quarterbacks ever who have gotten to a Super Bowl with 2 different teams.
Yeah. Brady and I don't know, somebody
Kurt
else.
Warner.
Manning.
Oh, Kurt Warner.
Manning, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Here's my response to that though. If you don't know the answer to that question by now with Jared Goff, he's 29, right? Like, and I don't mean this to bash him, but I'm just
Right.
saying in general, if you don't know by 29, doesn't that kind of answer your question?
Maybe. The tough thing with Goff though is it feels like he had to kind of hit the reset button on his career, and he's becoming an entirely new quarterback, and you have to give him the benefit of a little bit of time, especially since when he came to Detroit, there was no weapons, there was no identity, there wasn't an offensive coordinator that the team trusted. And so now, like, you really could only start a fair evaluation of Jared Goff in Detroit since the middle of 2022 and beyond. And so we have a year and a half worth, to me, of relevant data. And yeah, you can't completely ignore some of the bad things that happened in LA, and you can't completely ignore some of the bad things that happened here in Detroit in the first year and a half. But in terms of the rebirth of Jared Goff, I feel like we are still kind of in like the nascency of that a little bit, which is weird to say about a 28, 29-year-old, but I don't know. It's tough. You wish you were more definitive, I guess, on your opinion of Jared Goff at this point, because there are some of those inconsistencies and those moments where you're just like, what are you doing? But I don't know. I'm actually a little bit more confident, I think, on Jared Goff as the franchise quarterback moving forward than Ryan is, and I think most people are with me at this point. I mean, they're chanting the guy's name 20 times a game now, apparently, which is a new thing in Detroit completely. But you know, that predates Matthew Stafford, predates probably everybody, anyone in franchise history. So it's an interesting situation.
Yeah, he's the second best quarterback the Lions have ever had.
Yeah, it's probably true.
And
all
that
right,
happened back to back, which is wild.
Yeah.
We're the new Packers, baby.
Yeah,
All right.
how'd their franchise quarterback look when it came to nut cutting time? I'll just say that. One quarterback stepped up and the other guy peed down his leg.
Hey, listen, we'll take that time. We can talk about that for another 30 minutes if you want to.
That's why I'm so glad it's going to be 68 and sunny, Rob.
I mean, that pass he threw at the end of that game, what the hell was he thinking? He's rolling to his right, full speed, then he throws back across his body, and it's not like a 5-yard throw. This isn't Favre against the Saints. This is like 25, 30 yards down the field, and if Dre Greenlaw didn't pick it off, Fred Warner was gonna. Fred Warner's right behind him. Spare me, Jordan Love.
All right, Rob, I'm going to make you go next. What is the one thing you think you know about Lions 49ers?
Well, I think Deebo's going to play.
Okay.
And so I'm assuming he plays. And if he plays, Kyle is going to run an end around to Deebo Samuel. What he's going to do is he's going to smash Christian McCaffrey outside over and over and over again. And then as soon as you adjust to over pursue, he's going to run Deebo coming around the other side, and Deebo's going to get the ball, and you are going to say the words, oh, shit, out loud. Because you're going to see when he gets the ball, you're going to be like, oh, shit. And Deebo's going to run for 20, 25, hell, maybe even more. But especially in the playoffs, Kyle really leans on Deebo as a runner. So I think that he was a huge part of the game plan last week that they didn't get to do. And I think he's absolutely going to try it this week if Deebo's playing. And it's going to work at least once.
Yeah, that feels very possible.
Yeah, now I think they're not going to say, oh, shit. They're going to say, fucking Rob.
He has, I'm trying to find the actual number. I think he has some absurd number of carries, like 45 carries in the playoffs in his career, in 9 playoff games. Like, he gets run on the ground.
Yeah. All right. The one thing I think I know about this game is because the 49ers have such a good linebacking crew, because they're going to try to be covering the middle of the field. At some point, the Lions are going to need to stretch the defense long, thin. They are going to connect on a deep shot with Jamison Williams in this game. Jamo is going to break off at least a 40-yard catch in this game. And I feel like earlier in the season, every week we went like, all right, this is the game that Jamo's going to break out. This is the game that I'm not going to say he's going to dominate the entire game, but the Lions are going to dial up a play that's going to get him open deep over the middle of the field. and the Lions are going to cash in on it finally, and people are going to go crazy. J-Mo's probably going to get hurt on it because he just like, when he goes so fast, there's like no hitting the brakes. He's like a kid who learns how to ride the bike for the first time, and then they go downhill for the first time. Like, oh God, what do I do with the rest of my body? That's Jameson Williams on a deep ball, and he's going to hit on one in this game.
I can say with almost 100% accuracy that you are wrong. And the reason for that is because he's never going to get the opportunity to catch the ball because Ambry Thomas is just going to interfere with him. Because that's what Ambry Thomas does.
Okay.
If you get in any 3rd and long in this game, just look for 20 and just throw it to wherever he is. Because when the ball is in the air, Ambry Thomas stumbles around like a drunken sailor and waves his arms and crashes into receivers and gets a pass interference penalty. Like, book it. It will happen. If the Lions want to attack deep and outside the numbers, I guarantee you, they will get at least 2 pass interference penalties because it's gonna happen.
That will suffice because
Yes.
I know Jeremy is anti-spot foul penalty man, and even though he hates that a penalty in this league can cost a team 60 yards, if Jameson Williams gets the Lions 60 yards on Sunday through a flag, that take goes out the window.
Yeah, probably. But the Lions have never been that team that seems to take advantage like a Packers team does. The Packers know how to do that. Like, that's their best play in their playbook is 40-yard pass interference. It blows my mind how often they're able to do it. But I'll take one of those. We'll call that. You'll get like 70% credit for that. I'll get 30% credit for that.
I'm so confident in it. If I could place a bet on it, I would literally bet on it. Like, it's frustrating to me. Even their best corner, Mooney Ward, Travarius Ward, who is excellent, but he's very, very physical. So even sometimes he will get those flags. But Ambry Thomas is a disaster out there. It is waiting to happen. It happened last week. He had a 41-yard pass interference penalty on 3rd and 15.
Yeah. I remember, and I'm certain I tweeted something about it because, indeed, I do absolutely hate the spot foul pass interferences. All right, but before we get out of here, Rob, obviously the people listening on your end know who you are, but I want you to kind of promote yourself here for our Lions audience. Where can the people find you? What sort of stuff do you do over there on the interwebs?
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thank you. We're the Gold Standard Podcast Network. You can find our YouTube channel. We're available anywhere you get your podcasts. We're live on YouTube every single weekday. I do a 5-minute 49ers in 5, I call it. It's just like a news update with clips from press conferences and interviews and just basically everything going on with the team, injury report, to get you fully up to speed every morning. You can start your day with it. It's been a little crazy because for anyone that doesn't know, I used to be at SB Nation at Niners Nation, and then they laid me off, so I had to get everything going right before the Cowboys playoff game last year, which was a little scary, but we've got everything up and running now. So if you know any 49ers fans, please share the info, tell them to like and subscribe. I promise we'll earn their time.
Rob's, by the way, a freaking legend. Like, people still talk about him all the time at SB Nation. We were literally talking about you this week just because all the craziness you had to go through at this time last year and how much everyone didn't understand it and still doesn't understand it. But honestly, you do tremendous work, and I'm honored that you wanted to do a crossover podcast with us. So appreciate the time, man. I would say good luck to you on Sunday, but I don't mean that. Good luck. I'm a big fan of the 49ers franchise in general, and I'm Kyle Shanahan super fan. So I do like it. And especially, I love any team that beats the crap out of the Packers every year. So
yes, let's unite. Thank you for the kind words. I also wish you terrible luck, although I will say, if the Lions win, I will be rooting for the Lions, especially if they play the Chiefs. Especially if they play the Chiefs.
Appreciate that. And appreciate all of you guys, whether you're listening on the 49er side, the Lions side. Appreciate all of you. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you're following Rob, all of the people involved. And hopefully we have ourselves a good, entertaining, healthy game on Sunday. But until then, for Ryan, for Rob, I'm Jeremy. It's chaos. Be kind. All right. I turned my recorder off, but we are still live. We're going to hang around for a little bit here with our live, and it's not too long because it's been a crazy day already. And it's 9 p.m. over here, so we're not going to hang out too long. But Rob, if you want to hang out, you can hang out for a little bit, answer maybe some of the questions from our live audience. But if you got to go, you can go either way.
Yeah, I'd like to take a couple questions. I will say it's nice to do a show with somebody on East Coast time. 'Cause I'm in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I live in Connecticut. That's why I screwed up the time when I tweeted out about this earlier. Because I'm so
did
used
see
to
that.
converting, and it was a mess. So just it's 9 o'clock here. We're all on the same time. But no, I'd love to take questions if people have them.
Oh, here's a great one, and it was one I was going to put on the outline, and then I forgot. How's the safety play been without Hufanga, who is one of my favorite players of all time already?
Well, if you want some nightmares, just Google Jared Goff, Talanoa Hufanga, and you'll see a beautiful pick six on a screen.
No, thank
in
you.
a Rams game that was just, chef's kiss. It's really weird. So their highest draft pick this year was Jair Brown, who's a safety. He was a 3rd-round pick, and he didn't really play much. And then Hufanga got hurt. They put Jair Brown in, and he was really good. He was getting interceptions. He was making plays on the ball in the air. He did miss a few tackles, to be fair. But for the most part, I thought that the defense really didn't skip a beat. And then he got hurt. And then Kyle Shanahan benched him last week for Logan Ryan, who was on the scrap heap. And it didn't really make any sense to anybody. And on the Aaron Jones 54-yard run, Logan Ryan takes a horrible angle and completely whiffs and lets him out the gate. That's how that run happened. So I don't know why Kyle, he does put guys in the doghouse sometimes. And maybe Jair Brown did something to get in the doghouse. But they haven't really used him. It's been Logan Ryan at safety, and he's, no offense on him, but he's Logan Ryan. He's at the end of his career.
Yeah. Interesting.
That was weird.
Yeah. It happened with the Lions a little bit too, but they've gained my trust at this point where it's just like, okay, yeah, maybe Jerry Jacobs isn't the answer at outside corner, but the Lions don't really have any answers at outside corner right now. Hey, thanks, Riley. Zach, are you asking that to me or are you asking that to Rob? Who are you taking at 32 in the draft? Because I'm not one of these teams is picking at 32 in the draft. We're just not entirely sure which one.
Naturally.
Right.
I will say I'm super excited that I can read mock drafts again because the 49ers have a 1st-round pick for the first time in 3 years. But I literally have not even begun to. If I had to go position, I would say either tackle or corner because they desperately need both.
Yeah, it's much easier for a Lions fan to answer positions too, because this is uncharted territory for a lot of us, Rob. Like, football this late into the season that isn't on a flat piece of paper or a screen that's telling you who you're drafting and what you need. Uncharted territory. But I definitely feel like it's got to be corner or a defensive pass rusher. What are those two things?
And don't skip ahead. Sorry to cut you off, Jeremy. Appreciate. I don't have to tell Lions fans this, but I tell Niners fans this all the time because they've gotten a little numb to it. This is not normal. 4 NFC Championship games in 5 years is not normal. So don't be looking ahead to the draft.
Yeah, that's been the best. That's been one of the best parts I think of this run, Rob. Is I can just love football for what it is. Oh man, it is all it's cracked up to be.
The Senior Bowl is next week, and all of the Lions writers canceled their trips this week to the Senior Bowl. And I'm just that's awesome because the Senior Bowl is the most overrated event in football. Jim Nagy, nice guy, but I hate, Rob, I hate the draft. I hate draft season. I hate 4 months of covering an event that lasts 3 nights. I hate all of it.
Wow. Really?
Yes. And I know that's extra surprising as a Lions fan because that's been our Super Bowl maybe that's why it bothers me. It's that shouldn't be the Super Bowl. That should be the footnote to a season, not the
right. But isn't it cool when you see the press conferences today and you see that little NFC Championship game logo in the background?
It's
freaking cool.
It's
Everybody
awesome.
else's season is over.
Yeah.
Everybody it's so freaking cool. I don't know. I don't get numb to it, man. This is awesome.
No, I recorded a whole video for our premium newsletter today. It was just today was surreal. Being inside the Lions facility, seeing the NFC Championship logos, seeing a bunch of national media in the facility, seeing the place packed to the brim. There's usually 3 or 4 cameras set up for the press conferences. There was a dozen today. They catered us today because there were so many people.
Ooh.
All of it was. It was Little Caesars, so don't get too excited.
When you get to a Super Bowl, it's even weirder. So the first Super Bowl I ever covered was 2012. It was Niners-Ravens in New Orleans. And I'll never forget going into the hotel. I check in. I walk to go to the elevator to go to my room. And on the elevator is Michael Crabtree. And I think it was Anquan Bolden for the Ravens. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, it didn't really hit me until then. I was like, it's on the elevators. Like, it's everywhere.
Right.
We're here. It's wild, man.
I've let myself think about it a couple times for next week.
60 minutes. 60 minutes away.
It's 60 minutes away. It's yeah. I don't know. That's honestly, Rob, like that the weirdest part about all this to me is like if you would have told me 3 months ago that the Lions were in this football game, I'm like, "Oh wow, that was a great run. Good for them." Now I'm like I'm usually like the most guarded, optimistic person. Like I'm not that optimistic. I tend to hedge out. Like I feel like the Lions can win this game. I feel like the Lions could make the Super Bowl, and feel like legitimately good about that. And I didn't think there was any point this season I was going to get there. I'm just like, this is going to be a special season. They're going to win the division. They might win a playoff game or two. That's going to be a great fun season. Now I'm legitimately thinking like they can make the Super Bowl. They're good enough to make the Super Bowl, and that's me saying those words directly into a camera is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
They absolutely are. I could easily see them winning this game. When I even start to think legitimately about the game, I am dead serious. I get like a stomach ache. Like I get agita. Like even now, just thinking about the opening script, like, okay, what if the Lions get the ball first and they score and the Niners go 3 and out and the Lions score again? Oh my God. Then I have to stop myself from thinking about it, but it's all I can think about.
Yeah.
I guess a question for that though, Rob, is like, do other 49ers feel that way? Like other 49ers fans? Are they feeling that way? Are you sensing an anxiety or
are they taking the Lions seriously?
Game? Yeah.
I think some are, especially coming off the game last week.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is definitely a real thing. But then there also are these, super confident 49er fans that never think they're ever going to lose and they're going to win every game. And
Yeah.
But I generally think that they're, especially coming off last week, and the 49ers, like, this sounds disrespectful to say, but sometimes it's like they do it to themselves a lot of times, so they can lose to anybody. Not saying the Lions are a bad team, but it's like they literally, when they play poorly, they can lose to anybody. They miss tackles. They turn the ball over offensively. They can't cover kickoffs, which is a friggin' whole other subject, which they can't do, by the way. I don't know why they don't kick the ball through the end zone every time, but they don't. And it bit him in the ass last week.
Oh, man, now you're starting to speak my language, too. I think everyone should always kick touchbacks.
Yes.
The benefit of like being at the 20 instead of the 25 is not worth the risk of giving up a 100-yard touchdown.
Especially with San Francisco, where I feel like big plays are the only thing that can help teams stay in the game with the 49ers, because I think generally their defense is not going to allow you to make 10, 11, 12 play drives. But if they get a big kick return and they only have to make a 5 or a 6 play drive, that changes things. So just kick the damn ball out of the end zone.
Jeremy, do you get a sense about Leaf this weekend or what?
He didn't practice today, or didn't quote unquote practice today because they were walking through, but I don't know.
Right.
If you would have asked me last week, I would have said, yeah, he'll probably play this week. Not as confident with him listed as a non-participant this week. But if the Lions think they have an advantage in their coverage game, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to kick short. They're gonna try to force a return. So
that can be good and bad. Well, sometimes they put Deebo back there to return kicks, which if Deebo is back there, it doesn't matter if it's 8 yards deep. He's coming out of the end zone because Deebo does not care. Deebo's like,
I love that. I'm
doing it. But he's actually pretty good at it. The other kick returner for the Niners is Ray McLeod, who's not bad, but also has a history of fumbling, which is another reason why I always want him to just kneel wherever the hell he is. So the kickoff returns terrify me in this game, both sides.
Interesting. Talking special teams, another thing that I don't like. There was a question, and I can't find it, but I thought it was a good question for all three of us. They said, who is your preferred AFC matchup in a potential Super Bowl for your team?
Oh, do I have to go first?
Whoever wants to go first can go first.
Man, that's a you know what? Because I think Rob has a lot more information, I think, to dig through between revenge on the Ravens from what they did, a few weeks ago to Super Bowl revenge, whatever that may be. I'm gonna let him chew on it, and I'll just make it short, sweet, and simple. Let's end the season the way that it started.
It'd be crazy.
The Lions being the Chiefs in the Asterisk Bowl would be fantastic.
I mean, you want to talk about scripts. I hate the script meme now and how everyone is saying it, and people are making their theories about the color of the Super Bowl logo and all this garbage, but it would be pretty poetic for the opening season game to also be the closing season game. But yeah, I mean, if the Lions were to win both those, that'd be nuts.
Also want no part of the Ravens.
Yeah,
oh, you Ravens... mean the team that is the only team that has absolutely embarrassed the Lions this year? Yeah, that's a fair point.
There's a lot of that going around with Baltimore. I didn't get into this during the other portion of the show, but I was saying today, like, Dan Campbell is awesome, clearly, at motivating this team. And I don't think Kyle does that too much, and I think he should. And my narrative for Shanahan this week would be, America doesn't want you to win this game. America wants to see the Lions in the Super Bowl. They want to see David and Goliath, right? Nobody wants you to win this game. That's what I would push if I was Kyle, because you can sit there and say, like, oh, the Super Bowl is on the line. But the Niners have been talking about that and using that since they got eliminated last year against the Eagles. Like, you need new things to get your blood pumping, to freshen things up a little. Yes, it should be enough that the Super Bowl is on the line. But why stop at enough? Go, if you have a card to play, now's the time to play it. So that's what I would say if I was Kyle. America wants the Lions in the Super Bowl. Go wreck
it. That's putting Lions fans in a very uncomfortable spot because of the whole like Detroit versus everybody attitude that they've had for decades upon decades, and like convinced that there's a conspiracy in officiating and whatever, that no one wants the Lions to win the Super Bowl. It's bad for the NFL. I've never really understand the exact motive that they thought the NFL had, because clearly this is a fan base that is hungry, that is spending money, that is, know.
God, if they get to the Super Bowl, it's going to be, we're going to mobilize a fan base there that people don't realize. Like, Detroit's a great sports town. It's just they haven't exactly had a ton to cheer about.
Right.
Yeah. So no, I don't think that there's any sort of conspiracy or
anything.
Right.
And like there's now like the opposite. Like, Vikings fans are convinced now, like they want the Lions in the Super Bowl. To which my answer would be like, why did they wait so long?
Their plan was to establish a pattern for 57 years, and then we'll do it.
Let's not put the best running back in the history of the game in any sort of consequential or meaningful game. That sounds like a great idea. Hey, and then after 10 years of that, let's do it with maybe the best wide receiver that we've seen in quite some time in Calvin Johnson. Like, what? Does that make any sense?
Can I just say quickly, and this is just my personal thing, Calvin Johnson is not anywhere close to the greatest wide receiver of all time.
Oh, boy.
He's
you
not.
You waited an hour into this to turn full heel, huh?
I'm sorry. I have argued about this, and I know I'm biased because Jerry Rice is my favorite player of all time. There's a Jerry Rice autograph right there behind me. I wrote to him as a kid, and he signed a picture for me and sent it back. It's not close. Just because Calvin Johnson runs faster and jumps higher doesn't make him a better wide receiver. There is no metric that Calvin Johnson is a better receiver than Jerry Rice. Not Pro Bowls, not catches, not yards, not touchdowns, not Super Bowl MVPs, not championships. There's not one.
Not playoff wins.
Right. Sorry, I had to get it out off my chest because I feel like I'm taking crazy pills when people keep trying to tell me that Jerry Rice is not the greatest receiver of all time. And he is by a ridiculous margin.
Stats.
Whatever. Are you arguing with me?
I'm not bothering to.
What's your argument? Like, give me your fastball.
Just that there's no, you can't stop someone like that.
I think the basketball analogy would be if Jerry Rice is Michael Jordan, then Calvin Johnson was Shaquille O'Neal. And he was so physically imposing and dominant in a way that we hadn't really seen out of the wide receiver position, I think, in terms of his athletic ability and his the catching and everything, right? Like the toughness. That guy's tough as nails. Like, it just seemed like physically it was something so mesmerizing to see that like, oh, whereas with Shaq got the opportunity to, be in LA and be in a big market and play for really good teams, like Calvin Johnson was always missing that. Like, I feel like if Calvin Johnson in his career ended up on, I don't know, trying not to do something too gross, but like the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe Calvin Johnson might be remembered in a much different way than I think that he is. I don't know, across other fan bases.
Maybe. But if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bicycle.
Okay.
He was in Detroit. He also had a Hall of Fame quarterback throwing him the ball, by the way, in Matthew Stafford.
We're calling him a Hall of Famer now, huh?
Yeah, I thought he was I've always loved Matthew Stafford. I think, and I killed Detroit fans for booing him. During the game, you want to boo him? I totally get it. Before the game, he deserved to be cheered.
I don't want to get into that because I could get on a soapbox for a half an hour. All I'll say is like they booed every single Rams player who walked onto that field in pregame warmups.
Yeah, but he's not just any other player. He's the greatest quarterback your franchise has ever had. And the second he left,
I'm literally looking at a Matthew Stafford Rams Super Bowl jersey in my closet right now. Totally fine with him booing him. On the first home game in 30 years. Home playoff game, everyone's the enemy. I don't care what you did here.
If he's not number 2, he's number 1. Like in terms of my favorite players and probably this franchise's history, like that I watch consistently because like Barry was just a little bit before my time of appreciating and watching sports in the way that I do now, but he was the player that stood in between them and the past 30 years.
I also
it wasn't anything personal.
I also think it was kind of the pent-up frustration for Lions fans who had dealt with a full week's worth of this is all about Matthew Stafford. This is all about like Lions fans are like, what about us? What about Jared Goff going up against a coach that he not so secretly probably hates? Like, why aren't we talking about all of that? And
Fair.
So like people are like, no, let's make this about Jared Goff. So we're going to boo that guy and we're going to chant Jared Goff's name all freaking night.
That's fair. All right. I didn't think of that. I'll take back some of the things I said about Lions fans.
And here's what I hope they do. Like, I hope there's because the Lions play the Rams again next year in Detroit again.
Oh, wow.
Like, create a whole video package, do a whole, like, pregame ceremony, get your claps out, get all that. Like, do that next year. Don't do it. Don't, like, embrace the opponent of the first home playoff game in 31 years. Don't throw your arms around the opposition. It's all war.
That's fine. Save the tribute. I don't know. I would have, if it were me, I would have cheered him before the game. During the game, I would have been all about, seeing him die like a dog.
His wife also accused the fans of booing their children. So it was there was some antagonism going on from like the beginning of the week, and that's more so to the point Jeremy was making. But well, he's I don't know, he's sitting at home. Lions are in the conference championship game, so it's all good.
When's the last time you've been able to say that as a Lion fan when you're talking trash about an opponent? He's sitting home watching us.
Never, literally, ever.
And that's why we're saying it, because we finally can.
That's right.
By the way, did you see the report that Ben Johnson's going to be the coach of the Commanders?
Is there a report out there that says that?
Well, Boomer Esiason, supposedly Boomer Esiason said it's a lock of Boomer Esiason of Westwood One and WFAN in New York. I don't know if it's true. I just happened to see that before we came on. I didn't know if you had any more info.
I hadn't seen that, but it certainly seems like it's been trending that way for a while. It seems like Washington has had their eye on him specifically for a while. But
Washington, they stole Adam Peters from us. Now they're taking Ben Johnson from you. I don't like it.
I'm not a fan either. We'll see. I mean, he hasn't had the in-person interview yet. That'll happen next week at some point, whether they win or not. But yeah, I think it's clear that Washington is smitten. You never really know what Ben Johnson is thinking, because Panthers were smitten with him last year, and Ben Johnson's like, no thanks.
Maybe I will avoid this train wreck.
Yeah, exactly. I think we said that too on the podcast, Jeremy. Like, feels like of all the teams that still have a still have a chair with a spot. Seems like Ben Johnson to Washington makes the most sense.
Yeah.
You get to probably pick the quarterback that you want, depending on what the Bears do with their first overall pick. New ownership, so it's not like you're going into a Dan Snyder shark infested waters. Like
Right.
you do kind of get the sense that you get to reset everything.
Yeah.
So seems like the best spot for a guy like Ben.
Cool or not cool, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Just ready to give Jared Goff $50 million, Rob.
Well, I'm gonna have to.
Without Ben Johnson.
That's the question that I have. Is like, and
Sure.
with Dan Campbell too, same thing. Like, because Dan Campbell strikes me more as a motivational kind of CEO type of head coach, which is totally fine because that's the main job. But also that means that you need good coordinators around you, and that's an underrated skill that coaches have to have, is replacing your staff as teams poach it, because the more successful you are, they just raid you. They descend like vultures from above.
Right. And so far so good. The Lions actually have surprisingly lost a lot of coaches in 2 years. Some they've fired, some left for personal reasons, and they've done a pretty good job filling them. And also, I think a lot of people don't know this, but when they fired Anthony Lynn in the very first year, it was Dan Campbell who took over play calling duties. So he's got a little bit more chops than I think some people believe on the offensive side of the ball. But if Ben Johnson gets poached, he's not going to take over play calling duties again. I think the Lions either have a succession plan in place, or they even being able to hire like Anthony Lynn and Aaron Glenn right out of the gate, to me shows like he's got some connections, or in the way that he can motivate players, maybe he can motivate coaches to come here to Detroit. And listen, if people start poaching you, right, start poaching from your organization, that's a pretty good look to join. Like, oh, I want to climb up the ranks pretty quick. Maybe the Lions coaching staff is where I want to be.
100%. Guys know they're going to get jobs there. They're going to want to come to you. Yep. So I totally agree. I think Aaron Glenn will probably, he seems like he was getting a little love this time around. Maybe he will get a little more next year.
Yeah. I'm curious what's happening in Atlanta. Like, I know most people are like, oh, they're just going to get Bill Belichick. They're just beating around the bush, but the interest has to go both ways. I think people got to remember that. And who knows what Bill wants.
I'm hearing that he wants to kind of get the band back together, maybe with some of his coaches, which is like, sorry, I don't need Matt Patricia and Josh McDaniels. Like, hard pass on that.
You don't want a little Joe Judge and Matt Patricia,
right?
In your coaching staff, Rob?
Which is crazy to me, because like Belichick, the GM, is horrible. Belichick, the coach, is good. His biggest problem was that they had no weapons in New England. If he were to go to Atlanta and you have Bijan Robinson and you have Kyle Pitts and you have Drake London, and that you can sign potentially somebody like Kirk Cousins, holy crap. Like, you're winning that division next year probably. But if you want to get all these bum ass coaches to come with you, like, no, dude, no.
My the favorite tweet I saw after Mayo got the job in New England was that Bill had drafted more NFL head coaches than he had wide receivers who caught or had 1,000-yard seasons.
Oh, that's terrible.
Which is just a fantastic stat.
Chad Jackson at wide receiver. Oh my God. Yeah, no, it was Bill Belichick, the GM. That's why it's cool to rag on Belichick now, because Brady got to handpick his team and he won a Super Bowl immediately. And people are like, oh, Bill Belichick's not a good coach. He's an awesome coach. He's the best coach of all time, but he's a hideous GM that Tom Brady was able to cover up all his mistakes because Tom Brady is friggin' amazing.
Yeah.
I have strong opinions on literally every single topic.
I'll pray, I'll pour one out for Mike Rothstein if the Falcons hire Bill Belichick, who then hires Matt Patricia.
God. Yeah, it's happening.
Oh man! All right.
Especially with Harbaugh gone now, right? I thought Harbaugh was like their kind of fallback option in Atlanta.
Right.
Now he's in LA with the Chargers. So,
yeah. All right, Rob. Well, I know you got to get going here a little bit, so appreciate you doing some overtime with us, man. Appreciate you. I mean, I booked you for 40 minutes. We're at an hour 20, so appreciate you making some extra time. And yeah, I'm following all the stuff you do over there. So keep it up, man.
Oh, well, thank both of you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for putting up with my questions. And go Niners. I'll talk to you later.
Later, buddy.
See you, Rob. Thanks.
Recording stopped.
All right. I got to go work on Pride of Detroit Direct. So.
Okay, I'm gonna read alerts real quick and then get out of here. But you can bounce.
All right, man. See ya.
Bye, Ryan.
Bye.
Boop. All right, you're getting full screen here. Really quick, I'll read out some alerts, and if you guys have any more questions, we'll hang out for just a little bit because I also have to do Pride of Detroit Direct stuff. Rob is great, and if you aren't following him, please do at Stats on Fire. Very easy to remember on Twitter. Stats on Fire. Honestly, truly one of the more beloved people at SB Nation, and let's just say there was a lot of outrage about this time last year for decisions that were made. So, all right, let me get to some alerts here, and then we'll hang out for a second. Celestial Soldier, thank you for the 20 months. Says a berry anniversary to me. Let's effing go, yes sir. Shadalak, thank you for the follow. Indigo, 45 months subscribed to the channel. Says go Lions, steady as mouse, steady as a mouse. Just like this, steady as a mouse. Nick the Greek 100 bits says, why is Kyle Shanahan still wearing that hat from the second term of the Obama administration? Don't even know what you're talking about. JWN, thank you for the follow. Galvanize, thank you for the follow. Captain James Kirk's 50 bits says, great guest. Thanks, Rob. Sorry I didn't get to parlay that message to him, but hopefully he was reading chat because I saw a lot of love for him. Ryan T. Dodge, 6 months subscribed to the channel on Twitch, says happy mid-anniversary. Go Loins. Excited for you guys to get to cover Lions football into late January. Man, I'll tell you what, this week in particular, and Eric and I were talking about a little bit yesterday, it really like hit me in terms of like I hit a wall. I hit the rookie wall, the rookie playoff wall. I'm not used to covering the team this late. I tried to sleep as much as I could yesterday because I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm coming off of COVID and I had the flu like 3 weeks before that, but I just feel like I am completely out of energy and it's crazy. And you know, after this week, I might have 2 more weeks of football to cover. It's a lot of work. It feels like I've been working overtime for a while, but obviously it's thrilling and exciting, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else. So, Captain James Kirk a bit says mozzarella sticks, the draft, special teams, spot fouls, running backs. Yeah, those are a list of my least favorite things. It's true. Captain James Kirk 10 bits says Kyle Shanahan channeling his Sean McDermott mindset of rooting against America. Okay. Bit from Nick the Greek says get this guy out of here. I don't care if he's well informed and a good speaker. I'm guessing that was when he started talking about Calvin Johnson. He's got a strong opinion. In fact, when we booked him, Ryan knew him immediately from his Calvin Johnson. He's like, isn't that the guy that thinks Des Bryant is a better receiver than Calvin Johnson? I'm like, I don't know, maybe. Hey, no problem, Barb. Like I said, you guys make it a lot easier, a lot more fun. You realize that the mustache has to stay for the Lions to maintain this trajectory. I mean, I'm not shaving it until they lose. Wait. They lose or they win the Super Bowl. I have to amend that because if they win the Super Bowl, I'm not wearing it all off season. I haven't shaved it. Like, I trimmed it once. Now I'm not touching it. I have not trimmed it since like mid-December. So like it's out of control. Like it's fully over the lip. Like now I find myself just kind of randomly chewing on it sometimes, just like doing a little chewing on it because it's in my mouth already. And so like I don't know, it's weird. I don't like it. It's too long. I need to shave it. Captain James Kirk, Goff is the best Lions quarterback ever. Already the best Lions quarterback ever. I don't think I agree with that. It's hard for me to remove myself from Stafford completely, but he's right behind Stafford. Nick Drake 1 bit says this is why people hate California. Josh Mercer a bit says ask Rob what he thinks of Calvin Johnson having the single season performance out of any wide receiver ever. Sorry, I missed that. Nick Drake 100 bits says what clever fine distractions you draw, Rob. And Budget Jim 6 months subscribed to the channel says Super Bowl stash. I'm keeping it. And listen, it has a very good chance of being still here in 2 weeks. That's all I'll say. I don't the whole like splitting of the mustache stuff. I don't know how people do that. I don't like it. First of all, I don't like the look. I also don't know how to do it. I don't know how anyone like styles a mustache. Why don't you just let it grow? It's weird. Just saw Colton's parents own a roller skating rink. Have you been roller skating with Colton before? No, I haven't been roller skating in forever. I love roller skating. I used to play roller hockey. I love roller hockey. All right. I'm going to get out of here in a minute. I guess since we got done with First Bite a day ahead of time, that tomorrow night Madden Sim, because I'm going to be mid-flight Friday. I'm going to be in San Francisco on Saturday, so I feel like we got to do Madden Sim tomorrow. I feel like that's our own. It's either Madden Sim tomorrow or no Madden Sim. No, we're not going to watch Sights and Sounds together. Just go ahead and watch it yourselves. Haven't decided on time yet, but probably something like 7 o'clock. How am I supposed to sim on the plane? That doesn't make any sense. I can't bring my entire computer and play it on the plane. I don't think that's how it works. And I don't even know how it would stream. But yeah, we'll do the Madden Sim tomorrow night, probably around 7 o'clock. Keep an eye out on the website, on Twitter, on Discord. If you're part of our Discord community, I'll try to keep all of that information there. But yeah, it'll be a good time. And listen, now we don't know what to expect once we get the Madden result, because the streak was finally broken last week. The Lions defied the Madden Sims. So it should be a good old time. We don't know the uniforms yet. Where are we meeting for a beer in San Francisco, Jeremy? I don't know. I don't know when I'm gonna have free. Like, all these people want to meet up with me, and I'm super humbled by all that. But I get there Friday night. I don't have anything planned Friday night. But I get in at like 8 or 9. I'll probably be pretty tired because that's 8 or 9 Pacific time. Saturday night, I'm having dinner with a family member I haven't seen in a super long time, and I'm very excited to see him and his family. Saturday during the day, maybe, I don't know. And then Sunday, game day is never a good day to catch me because I'm working. I'm going to be tied up in my own emotions. I also kind of want to watch the Sunday early game, the NFC Championship game. Lions Instagram posted Lions NFC Championship, and in they're all what? What does that mean? What did they post on Instagram? What do you mean? What do you mean? Let me look at their Twitter or their Instagram. Okay, you're talking about this. This is their new wallpaper. I think it's probably a safe bet that they're going to wear all whites because that's their preferred, like... But they haven't announced it yet. I would assume all whites. Probably a safe bet. I saw an announcement that said all whites. What announcement? From them? Everyone keeps saying they see an announcement. What announcement? The Lions announced it? Because if the Lions did an announcement, then it's not an announcement. Let me get the Lions Twitter. Some guy on Twitter? That doesn't count as a thing. Leave Mike alone. Chat. Leave Michael alone. Source, I made it up. Got it. I don't want AG to leave. I don't think I'm ever going to bleach my mustache again. That was such a miserable experience. All right, why am I still live? Guys, I got to go. Oh, my raid button's not working. Let me see real quick if there's someone I can raid. I got work to do. I also would like to just go to bed. I have laundry I need to change. I got stuff to do, chat. Man, nobody I know personally is live. That's sad. All right, we're just going to end stream then. Guys, I'll see you tomorrow for the Madden Sim around 7 p.m. Again, check Twitter, check Discord, check the website maybe even for further information on that. Yeah, I got to change my laundry. I was trying to do it right before the show, but the load needed to be changed at like 8:01, and so I mistimed my stuff. Anyways, tomorrow, 7 p.m., Madden Sim. We'll see you then. Until then, have a good night. Go Lions.